You are listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network. This is Soccer Today, live on SPN Radio, your new live show about the beautiful game in all its glory, with Duane, Rollins and Kevin Laramee. MLS, EPL, La Liga, Champions League, all is fair game. Powered by the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us at sportspodcastingnetwork.com.
Hey, welcome to a jam-packed edition of Soccer Today. We've got two great interviews. We'll just jump right into it. Kevin Laramee is on the line with me as always, but important guest, a legendary guest within Canadian soccer, just retired this week. Julian Guzman joins us on the line. Julian, thanks for taking some time.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Julian, let's start with the here and now and talk about how difficult it was to make this decision to move into coaching and to end your playing career.
Yeah, I mean, this didn't just happen overnight. This was actually something on my mind for quite some time, and the first time it actually hit me was maybe after I was finishing in the MLS. I wanted to get back to Europe and get close to my kids again. It wasn't an easy task playing in the MLS and seeing my kids only twice out of the year. So I told myself I'm going to put family first for the first time in my career back in 2013. And, luckily enough, I was able to sign with a team in Germany, and it allowed me to be close to my kids. So that continued to happen, for 6 months in Germany, then a year in Greece. And then after that season in Greece, I really, put my foot down and said, I got to spend time with my kids. So I had put soccer aside, but what made it even harder was getting call-ups from the national team. And this was probably the one reality I couldn't ignore, was the fact that playing for your country was a hard thing to say no to. And Benito kept calling me in. I kept going, but in between, I was able to spend time with the family. But then, in the reality of a professional side of things, you have to have a professional club in between the call-ups. So that's what brought me back to Canada in Ottawa, and then next thing I'm fully engaged for the next 2 years playing for Ottawa, and I'm not qualifying for the World Cup. That pretty much confirmed my decision to really look into other directions, off the pitch, and then it came to my decision yesterday, or a couple of days ago, where I had to announce the retirement. And yeah, it wasn't an easy thing to do, but it was a long process, and I'm glad that it happened at this time.
Let's talk about Ottawa a little bit and the opportunity that they provided you. We'll talk about that, how important it is to you to get into coaching and the opportunity at Ottawa.
Yeah, I mean, I had a chance to learn more about Canadian soccer since I came back to Ottawa. I had an idea of coming back to MLS, playing with Toronto FC, but seeing an expansion team like Ottawa a couple of years ago, come onto the map, that drew a lot of interest. Being a part of Ottawa for the last 2 years educated me a lot more, and it made me realize that the game is actually growing and it's heading somewhere. So having the chance to stay involved with the Canadian club post-career, I think that's the opportunity, not just myself, but many Canadians in my generation look forward to. And to be able to work with a Canadian club as a Canadian, I think that's the outlook for guys like myself, guys like maybe like Atiba, Dero. I mean, these are the positions that we want to find ourselves in. Playing even for the national team with Ante, Isaac Zilling, Stalteri himself. I mean, this is what we need for the game to continue to grow. Guys with our type of experience to continue to pass on to the future. And Ottawa allows that. And this is why I feel it's still my duty to stay involved and to help the program grow and move forward. And this is the opportunity I definitely could not turn down. So it's a great situation here in Ottawa, and for me to take this step forward is definitely an opportunity you don't ignore as a Canadian.
I just want to go back, Julian, to your time with the Canadian national team over the last few years. You mentioned how Benito kept calling you up. Were those call-up a surprise for you?
Yes and no. I mean, the national team is infamous for calling guys who are unattached. So that wasn't the surprise. I mean, the surprise more was the fact that I didn't have a club, and I felt around that time, I felt maybe Benito was looking for, more towards the future, which he was. But it made sense that he wanted a guy like myself, a guy like a Tiba Imandiro with experience, to stay involved and to help, just to help, the newcomers, the new faces, the younger generation, have something to look up to. And, and again, Benito being Benito and coming from Spain, that was also the intriguing factor. With me getting the call-ups and understanding his philosophy and what he wanted to pass along. So I really enjoyed my time in Spain. I learned a lot of football, tactically in Spain. And what a lot of most Canadians went through in the national team under Benito, that's exactly what I went through. When I first went to Spain at La Coruña, I had no clue about tactics. I was never really taught football. And I was lost during my first 6 months there, maybe to a year. But then once I understood, the teaching and the philosophy of Spanish football, I was able to excel. And that's exactly what a lot of Canadians went through under Benito. And I think in the end, there's many Canadians who actually learned a lot and appreciated his teachings. And that was the connection that Benito and I had.
Julian, when you sat back a few days ago and reminisce on your whole career, which moment stand out? Which moment was the pinnacle, the most positive that you felt in your career?
I would have to say my debut. Just to make it and play for your country at an important stage, such as the Gold Cup, and you get that call up, and that's something I've since childhood, and going off to Europe and trying to make a name just so I could get a call up and become a part of the national team was huge, because I was actually turned down from the national team in the 17s, and so Paul James had called me up because I was in Marseille. So I felt that I had to do something different and draw some type of attention to get that call. But then getting called to the men's teams for the Gold Cup in 2002 under Holger, that was a huge thing for me, and that was my way of kind of getting my career started. That was just the beginning, and I needed that first foot in the door to get the ball rolling, and that was a huge moment for not just for myself on the national team level, but I think in general career wise. So that's exactly what I wanted, and I felt if I could represent my country, for one cap or a couple. I mean, for me that was the dream come true. But then after that, 88 caps later, here I am, and I look back at how fast that all went by, and it was a tough thing to admit that I'm stepping away from this game that I've loved so much and dedicated everything to, and I could finally say as a player that I made it. And it's the first time I actually felt that way at that press conference.
Julian, let's go back a few years. I want to address you making La Liga, becoming the first Canadian to start in La Liga. What was that journey like, and how did you end up getting that opportunity to make that move to Spain?
So when I signed in Hanover in 2002, the 3 years I was there for, the 3 seasons I was there for, the sports director, it was his first year in Hanover at the same time I arrived, and he came from La Coruña. So the 3 years I was there, and when my contract was up, his contract was up at the same time. And obviously Hanover wanted to keep me. His job was to keep me at Hanover, but I wasn't getting the offer that I felt was like fair, or even the agents that I was working with at the time were kind of questioning why aren't we getting the right offer, or at least something comparable to the other offers they were getting in the Bundesliga. Then he admitted, he said, listen, I'm going back to La Coruña and I want to bring you there. And once I got that, feel that I was going to go to, I had a chance to La Liga, I was like, wow, I never imagined anybody that's Canadian, or I don't know any stories of anyone that I know playing in La Liga, except maybe players I've played with or in Germany, but as a Canadian, for me, that was a big thing. And that was a league I've always followed growing up too. So when my last 6 months of my contract in Hanover, I was free to sign with any other team with any pre-contracts, and he already had a pre-contract from La Coruña ready for me to sign. And it didn't take much negotiating to do that. I jumped at the opportunity as soon as possible, even though there were offers from all over Bundesliga. Even Tottenham were interested at the time, Marseille, but I was like, I'm going to Liga. I'm going to Spain, and that was the era when it was really the League of the Stars, or what they call it, La Liga de Estrellas. And that experience in Spain, being able to fill in one of the non-EU spots, which is only 3 of them per team, for me it was huge. And I just need to get that and know how. But I got there, and even the coach there wasn't even a coach appointed at the time. And when the coach finally did come, including him, the media fans, they had no clue who I was. They were scratching heads about a Canadian on Deportivo La Coruña, and I knew that was kind of like considered a joke, the first couple of months there. But that didn't matter to me. I just need to be there, and I've been doubted many times before, signing to La Coruña, and I felt that there's always ways of earning your stripes, and that's by doing what I do best, and that's being committed and just working hard and ready to hustle my way to something that I've never imagined myself being involved with ever in my life. So that's exactly what happened, and it's probably the best years of my career that I could remember.
Your departure from La Liga was not completely in your control, and it must have been a difficult time for you at that time. Just to describe what that decision was like to move away from the dream that you just spoke of and move back to Toronto and MLS.
Yeah, after the 4 years in Spain, I was attached to that whole culture and football, and I felt like I was in my top level of in my prime. But at that same time, the economy had the crisis that affected not just the U.S. but globally, and it hit Spain really hard. So a lot of the offers that were coming in, they didn't match to what I expected. I was reaching 28, where I felt, okay, now I need to sign a decent deal that could carry me on, and those are the moments where money becomes a factor. And the offers that were coming in were very low, to the point where we started shopping around other parts of Spain, Español, Zaragoza, Almeria. A lot of these teams were showing interest. But the problem was they thought I had a European passport. And the fact that I had a Canadian passport, they weren't able to go forward and have me fill in one of the non-EU spots. So there was confusion, obviously, between me and my brother. They thought I had a Dutch passport for some reason, but that wasn't the case. So I waited it out. I became a free agent by May. July, I had the Gold Cup in 2009. Had a pretty good Gold Cup. August, still no team. And then, but by August, I've heard a couple of interests from TFC, and I thought it's too early to come back home. I'm going to still wait around. And my agent at the time said, just wait till maybe the winter break and something will come up. But I felt it was a bit too risky, and then there was offers coming in, from England, offers from Germany. But the last offer that came in August was from PSV, and I had a talk with the coach, and but I still wasn't convinced, that I should be playing at that level. I felt I wanted the Liga more than anything else, and I was willing to wait. But then September came around, and then my agent called me about TFC, wanting to sit down and talk, and they met my expectations on what I wanted financially, but not even just that. Just the idea of coming home to play professional soccer, that was obviously a new experience I've never imagined myself, being a part of. And I was already following TFC from when they started in 2007, and it was something. It was another dream. It was another dream I've always had, was playing, professional soccer in my country, and it was in my hometown as well. And I came down to September to negotiate, and before you know it, I signed a 3-year deal with TFC. So that was how I made that transition from leaving La Liga to come to the MLS.
What happened in Toronto in the last fall with the MLS Cup, last winter basically, with the MLS Cup in Toronto, TFC's great run in the playoffs. Could you imagine back then, Julian, that MLS could be this big in Canada? Were the writings on the wall when you decided to come back to this North American continent?
That was a dream to watch. I've never enjoyed it, MLS soccer, or even Canadian soccer, if you want to call it, that much. And I was in Spain at the time watching that game, the derby between Montreal and Toronto. Like that was an amazing experience, and I almost was going for both teams. Obviously, I was rooting for Toronto, but just the fact that the game of football is being recognized now. Not just in Toronto, not just in Montreal or Vancouver, but nationwide. This is what we wanted for the national team, right? But to see the game, take this direction, it's wonderful. This is what the country needs. We need unfortunately, we need success to back the idea, and success whereas if Ottawa does well in the NASL, TFC making the finals, Montreal Impact going to the Champions League finals, little things like that will continue to help the game grow. And the attention that it's getting now compared to what it was before, it's a lot different. But I still also believe that we still have a long way to go, and and there's a lot of things that are bound to happen to change this game forever in a direction that many of us have always wanted to go. So it's all about patience, and I think I strongly believe it will continue to head in the right direction that we really wished for.
If you could go back in time, Julian, and go to 1994 and tell a young player of North Scarborough SC one advice for the future, what would you tell him?
Oh man, I was 13 at the time. I actually went to the World Cup in Detroit to watch Brazil and Sweden. Yeah, at that time, at 13, for me, for a lot of 13-year-olds and young kids, they have to believe in one thing, and whatever it is that they believe in, whatever it is, if it's soccer or anything in life, it's considered a risk, and they'll have to make it maybe the biggest risk of their life. And no matter what struggles or sacrifices you have to make, at the end of the day, the hard work that you put into it, the commitment and the belief that you have behind that goal, there's going to be a reward at some point down the road. So I don't know if it's because I'm Canadian but you just have to be honest with yourself and with the risk that you take, and just believe. There's always a great reward behind every risk and dedication that you put behind that goal. So that's my advice for any young teenager out there.
Julian, we'll wrap it up with this one. You mentioned the national team a lot in this, and if you look back on your generation, there was some talent there. You D-Row yourself, the team was a little younger, but nonetheless he came in there. Paul Stelteri, you caught the end of him. There was some talent that played at high levels, but yet, well, we don't need to finish them, but yet it just never happened. Can you pinpoint simply why this team was never able to get over the hump to get to a hex?
Oh man, it's crazy to just imagine the amount of talent that we had, and it was just unfortunate. I think we've just been too disorganized and for too long. You know, all the talent that you just mentioned there, none of them has played in any professional leagues in Canada because that was never available for us. And can you imagine if we had those talented players growing up in professional environments, and that talent just would multiply over and over again, and then you have a pool of players to just pick from. But we just never had that professional environment for too long, and that's something we desperately need for such a long time. And today, now we have up to 5 professional teams in the country, and this is the direction we need to go. I went to a camp I had, and I was invited to from the national team under 15s. When you get to pick the best players from TFC, Vancouver, Montreal, Edmonton, when you get to bring these guys together at that age, that's something we never had growing up. But a lot of the talent that we had, and I played with, we had to take all those guys. I mean, they had to take probably the biggest risk of their life, and that was to leave everything behind and go venture off into a country where Canadians were never recognized or respected. But at some point, each one of us were able to plant that maple leaf somewhere, abroad, and that was our journey. And hopefully, that doesn't have to last like that for the rest of our lives. And now it's changing, and I think I pray to God before I die, I get to see Canada in a World Cup again. So, and I think it will happen now that we're heading in this type of direction.
Well, we certainly hope to, Julian. And on behalf of the Voyageurs, a group I call myself a member of, I thank you for answering the call 88 times, and we wish you all the best moving forward.
Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate the support, and wish you guys all the best.
Thank you, Jim.
All right, take care.
You are listening to Soccer Today, live on SPN Radio. Visit sportspodcastingnetwork.com for more.
And welcome back. I was having some problems with the mute button there, Kevin, but we do thank Julian for his time today. And I was being sincere at the end. Here in Toronto, there are some fans that were frustrated with Julian when he was here, but no one can ever question his commitment to the national team. No one can ever question his commitment to the game, and we do, especially at the end. He really was a player, and I think I've said this in other places before, that in the latter part of his career really became a leader in the way that you want all the veterans to become, and I think was just a great contributor to the national team pool, even as his perhaps his on the field skills might have been dwindling a little bit. Kevin, I know you didn't watch Julian as long as I did, but any thoughts on his career before we say goodbye to him in this segment?
Well, we mentioned when we Patrice Bernier announced that this was going to be his last season, how class act Patrice Bernier was. Julian de Guzman is the same for me. There was some controversy, not necessarily surrounding him per se, but with his brother and the national team and all that. And Julian has always been a class act, always answering that call, even when it wasn't easy. Listening to him in that interview, you could tell the emotion and the pride that he felt wearing that jersey many times. And when I've asked him what was his most favorite moment, it was when he put on that maple leaf for the first time. And that tells you a lot when you played in La Liga. And I think the biggest moment for him still, after all those years, was that moment in 2004. And that means a lot. And by the way, second player ever to have won the Gold Cup MVP for Canada. Julian de Guzman, Craig Forrest was the other winner. But Julian de Guzman, congratulations on a great career, and congratulations on the realization that Canadian soccer needs help, and for you now to coach at a Canadian level in a Canadian club, to have a national team vision in the future, like I mentioned, it is quite hopeful to see.
Yeah, look, that La Liga, the fact that he started in La Liga, he scored in the Bernabeu, he had a significant contribution to Spanish soccer, made a name for himself there, is not something to dismiss. At the peak of his powers, Julian de Guzman would have been on a starting 11, CONCACAF starting 11. He would have been, for our American listeners out there, and a lot of our American listeners probably only know Julian from his time in Major League Soccer, where he did not have the best of times. When at his peak, he would have been a U.S. men's national team player as well. This was a true star of the game in this region, and someone that I'm happy to celebrate. It's a bit weird for me because he is the first probably big name Canadian player that I interviewed in a show like this, and I've interviewed him several times over the years, and I can distinctly in my own mind track the changes, the maturity changes that he's made from the first time that I spoke to him to the last time that I spoke to him. And I think that's a credit to anyone that is able to evolve continually and to change their focus and change how they contribute on the pitch. And at least he's still in the game. We haven't been able to see the big fluffy hair in a while, but we at least will be able to see him continue on his coaching career, his coaching journey, and that's a good thing.
What's interesting to me, too, is when he was talking about his coaching journey, he was not necessarily expecting himself to go into that journey and to maybe appreciate and enjoy the process the way he is right now. So that's interesting. So of all what's going to happen in Ottawa this year with the move to the USL and everything in Division 3 in Canada, Division 2, sorry, in the United States and Canada, it'll be interesting to see how Julian travels those waters and becomes a better coach throughout it. So that'll be fascinating to follow for me this season.
All right. We have Evan Ream coming on in 4 minutes to talk about there's a mess in Sacramento is the only way to put it, Kevin.
It was interesting yesterday watching those parts of the presentation that we could see, and the owners of all the 12 bids were posted and presented yesterday. So in Sacramento, a lot of, let's just say, different owners than we would expect.
Yeah, and if you read the Jeff Carlisle article in ESPN, it explains it in pretty good detail. I recommend that. Maybe I'll retweet it after the show. If not, you know how to find him probably. We'll get Evan to explain the situation, too, that there's this convoluted mess of ownership intertwangled that they can't sort of just separate or have one go forward. Each of them needs the other, and it doesn't seem like at least the one side of the Sacramento Soccer Holdings Company, I think it's called, is sort of countering off on its own, and that this seems unfortunate. The press release today from the Sacramento Republic, that was astonishing. The club itself would actually release it the day after, saying, we have no idea what's happening. This is the club that everyone just assumed would be the team that the lead, like the focal point of their expansion bid. What's propelled Sacramento into the conversation has been the success of the Republic and that soccer operations, and for them to not be included and to not even realize that they're not being included is it's astonishing, as I said. And look, we'll talk to Evan about it, but to me, I've always had my doubts about MLS's true commitment to going into Sacramento, regardless if they can find sexier options in their mind. But you add this mess to it, and this could be DOA, and that's unfortunate because there was a lot of good stuff going on there.
You know what it reminded me of when I first started to be aware of the situation last night? It reminded me of when you're at college or late high school and you have a group project and you only have that one guy in the group that doesn't do this part, and at last minute you take his name off the work and he's now stuck. What? Oh, damn it! I didn't even know when it was not on it. That's too late to do something about it. What am I going to do? That's a situation that could equivalent to it.
Yeah, well, except for this case, the guy doing the work is who had his name taken off, as far as I can tell. But
exactly. So maybe it was like a mutiny of some sort. That's what it looks like.
All right, we have 2 more minutes. We'll take another minute here. Just real quickly, the rest of the expansion. No real surprises yesterday that the cities we thought were going to get under the deadline did. Mark Abbott today announced that the next 4 teams will come from this list. There won't be a second call for expansion bids after the facts. So
bye Miami. Bye Miami.
Yeah, so that might mean good things for Tampa Bay, and we'll have to maybe talk to to someone from down there soon enough. Maybe we'll ask Lee Godfrey if you're listening. Lee, we might request you. At any rate, that's some interesting stuff there. We'll, as I said, I think probably what we'll do in the days ahead on this show, because we're a daily show, we have time, is sort of try and approach each of these markets and try and get a hold of someone to talk to about the expansion bid. 2020 is when they're talking about these teams starting, so not that long, really. 2020 seems forever from now, but it's really not that far away.
Wait, it's 3 years. It's just 3 years away.
Yeah, it's basically the length of time that we've been broadcasting together is when they will be starting, right? So like we're halfway there. However, we'll probably still be podcasting, God knows. But at any rate, the other part of this is 27. Late this year is when we're expecting the announcement. Probably, I'd anticipate it would be during MLS Cup week, so that will be likely when we'll hear from it. All right, let's take a break. This might be a minute or so, guys, if you're listening live, to get Evan on the line, and we'll talk a little bit more in detail about the Sacramento situation.
You're listening to Soccer Today on SPN Radio. You can find the on-demand version of this very show on iTunes, Stitcher, FeedBurner, Podbay Player, Podbean, anywhere you get your podcasts under the Sports Podcasting Network feed. Subscribe to our YouTube page to make sure you never miss a live show talking about soccer today, the MLS post-game show, open lines after dark, 5 rings daily during the Olympics. Make sure you subscribe and give us a follow on Twitter at SportsPodNet and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Sports Podcasting Network. Joining us from the Davis Enterprise, Evan Ream. Evan, how busy have you been in the last 24 hours?
Why? Has something happened?
I don't know. Why don't you tell us? Did something happen? What happened?
I think we're also trying to figure that out, to be honest. I mean, I listened to the intro, and then you guys sort of got the gist of it. And, it sounds like the Republic submitted their bid yesterday. Well, not the Republic. Sacramento submitted an MLS bid yesterday, which possibly didn't have any sort of mention of the actual Republic, and then where all these more details came out about how they're really, Garber had been negotiating with 2 different people and 2 different parties, and the 2 different parties, of course, are Kevin Engel, who is the owner of it's called Soccer Holdings or something like that. I can never remember what the company is called. And then Warren Smith, who we found out is still the majority investor of the Republic, and so there's sort of some controversy going on there. We're not really sure what's happening, just that for a while it seemed like this was a slam dunk bid, and now we're really not sure, and we're not sure how any of this is going to affect the possible future of MLS in Sacramento.
Yeah, the statement from the club today blew my mind. I mean, that they weren't aware of what's going on, that they're not aware that that they weren't part of this, that they reiterated their support, I guess, for the fan base and for the project moving forward, but the project moving forward as an advancement of that club, of the Republic moving up a level. Is there any chance that a Sacramento bid without the Republic attached could garner the support in the city needed for it to be successful in your mind?
Sure. I mean, here's the thing, right? The people who are going to be alienated by a possible bid without the Republic are the Tower Bridge Battalion and the Republic's, diehard fans. But that does make up a decent number, and I can tell you that it would be an extremely bad idea to piss those guys off. You've seen how vocal, or maybe, I don't know if you've seen how vocal they've been on social media, but it's been pretty crazy. It seems like it would be, if that is what's happening, it seems like it would be a terrible idea to abandon, essentially your best supporters. But I think there is enough support from, I guess, I don't want to call them, fair weather fans, but definitely just not a diehard fan, not the supporters groups, So I think there's enough support just by the average fan, the guys who sit on the sidelines, not behind the goal, the guys who aren't singing all the time. There are enough of those people, I think, to to support a bid like this. I just wonder what kind of an atmosphere would be in the stadium, down the road if the two sides did end up splitting, because the whole thing that made the Republic popular and notable were the crowds, not only their size, but their passion and their support. And the Republic and soccer in Sacramento owes a ton to the Tower Bridge Battalion and the other fan groups who have supported the club through really everything and have worked with the club in order to achieve the status that it currently has. So I do think there is support and in terms of money, in terms of enough people who aren't, essentially diehards. I just don't think it would be a good idea to alienate, your best fans, really.
No, Dad. Sorry, go ahead, Kevin.
I was going to say, Evan, we've been talking for a few years now between USL Radio and Soccer Today. We've talked about the possibility of Sacramento and the sexiness of the bid back then. In all the 12 bid that you've seen over the last 24 hours, does Sacramento, with the event the last 24 hours, does the bid lose of this appeal, of its appeal? Do you feel in Sacramento maybe a negative aspect to it that wasn't there before the whole thing happened in the last 24 hours?
Yeah, of course. I mean, the whole thing about Sacramento was that it was the only market that hadn't gotten a team yet that had checked all the boxes that Don Garber and MLS had set forth in order to be a successful expansion candidate. And it had done it for a prolonged time. I mean, you look at a team like, FC Cincinnati, they've had good crowds, so they had good crowds for 1 year. Market size, I don't know a ton about Cincinnati market size, where they rank in TV and stuff like that, but Sacramento, I believe, is the 20th largest TV market, and they've sold out the stadium almost every game for 3 straight years. They were the ones setting the record before Cincinnati. It appeared they had a solid ownership group with enough capital. There's definitely enough capital there, and they control the rail yard district, which is where the proposed stadium would go in. And the rail yards is, of course, at least a couple of years ago, I don't know if it still is, but it was the largest urban infill project in the entire United States, meaning the largest hole in the area, and at least most of the land there was controlled by a Republic minority investor. And so they had everything going for them. And, there were always rumors. People told me about behind the scenes about there being certain tensions and, stuff like that. But I didn't realize that upon submitting a bid, that the two sides hadn't really come to a conclusion yet. And what seems actually ridiculous is that Sacramento, which is the team, of the 12 bids, they've been here the longest, I think. And yet they were either the last or second to last team to actually submit their bid, which seems to suggest that a lot of last-minute things were happening yesterday, and maybe that'll come out in the future what those were, maybe not. Maybe it had something to do with the new addition to the ownership group yesterday that apparently the Republic didn't know about. Maybe they did. I'm not really sure. I'll tell you what. To sum it up, that there are now a lot more questions than answers, and before it seemed like there were just answers.
But with the caveat that it's speculation at this point, that no one really truly knows what the dispute was or whether there's even a dispute. Often when you trace these things back, money's involved. There's some kind of it's something about money. Do you think maybe that the stadium situation, the fact that the Nagel and the Sacramento Soccer Holdings Group controls the stadium build, but not the team, that might be the root of what's happening here, that they just want to control everything and not have to worry about a secondary partner in there?
I mean, I don't know what it is, really, and I don't think it would be necessarily fair to guess. I just know that the sides have been moving apart for some time now, and as I reported last night on my Twitter feed, a couple of months ago, the two sides were under mediation, and the mediator was Don Garber, and allegedly they came to some sort of an agreement, whether it was written or whether it was verbal. I'm not sure, but I was told by multiple people. I actually now have 6 sources on this story that the Republic were completely blindsided by what happened yesterday, and so I don't know if it's a the strategy for Nagel to drive down the price. I really don't know what it is, but it can't help. That's for sure. Yeah, I don't really have anything to add on to that.
All right, let's move to the reactions today. Is this a story that's getting attention beyond the soccer bubble? Is radio in Sacramento talking about it today, TV in Sacramento talking about it today? What is the general reaction to this been?
Oh yeah, it's definitely everywhere because the city has been so. There aren't a lot of big time things in Sacramento, and I don't mean to say that Sacramento is a bad city. It's just that it's a fairly small city. There's only one major sport, and what is Sacramento known for nationally or even in California? I mean, other than the fact that it's its capital, it's really hard to say what Sacramento is. And so this is another sports team would help better legitimize a city that is already secretly great, but no one knows it yet. And so yeah, it's been reported all over the news, radio, TV. People are all over. The mayor of Sacramento scheduled a press conference for 3:30 today. Unfortunately, I won't be able to attend. That's, of course, 3:30 my time in about 50 minutes. So we'll see what he says, because he, along with Nagel, had essentially wiped everything about the Republic from their publicity. So it's actually, I would say that right now, unless Boogie Cousins does something weird tonight, it's probably going to be the story of the day, and maybe they keep on being the story for the week. And I don't think that's what people wanted, but it is the Republic's trip to MLS is a very relevant story on the forefront of just area news, and it has been for quite some time now.
Evan, if Sacramento is not part of those four in the next expansion of the two round of expansion, is it a detriment to the Republic? Will fans give up on the dream that they're now having hope on while going to a USL game thinking, I'm just laying the groundwork for one day going to an MLS franchise games? If that doesn't happen, is it the end of the dream? Will people give up? Or do you think that the willingness to tough it out until the next eventual round, few years down the road, will be there?
I think, I got asked this question earlier today and I wasn't really sure how to answer, but I thought about it a little bit. And, the battalion and the other supporter groups, I think, will still be there. I've been sort of exchanging a few words with a few different people. When I say words, I don't mean that in a bad way. We've just been talking. But they are supported to the cause to the point where it's like, we will support the team no matter what. It doesn't matter what league it's in. That's very much the mentality of the battalion right now. And conversely, they will not support a team that is not the Republic, even if they get an MLS team. I don't think the support in that sense will waver, but I wonder about, the other really 75% of the stadium. What's going to happen to that? And I think you could see some drop off. And honestly, I think Sacramento got its hopes up really high, really early, and that's part of the reason why interest in the team at the USL level hasn't been maybe what it used to be. But there's still a lot of passion there, and it's just more like we thought we were getting MLS 2 years ago, so why do we have to keep waiting and waiting? So I definitely, if they're not in the next four, I don't know what would happen, but I imagine the battalion would be there. And one more interesting to explore is if they're not in the next four, what's going to happen with a lot of the projects that they've done, like the academy, right? They're one of the only USL teams with an academy system, which is incredibly expensive. Is that something that's going to be feasible to run? And not the only reason they did it, but one of the major reasons they did it was to show MLS that they were, major league. And I wonder if they have the finances to continue something like that if they don't have MLS. So, it'd be very interesting, although unfortunate, to see something like that play out.
Evan, let's go a little global in terms of the overall expansion rates right now. You've obviously covered it from the Sacramento perspective, but you have an understanding of the whole thing. A lot of people are speculating that only one California team will get the nod. Is that your take? Do you think that they'll be regional in how they award these teams?
No. I mean, MLS obviously wants to expand its geographical footprint, which is, why Sacramento was told that Minnesota got the bid over it or whatever, and they're, obviously looking at markets like Miami and other Midwest markets to try and expand. And I think that's why there's interest in San Diego. But I mean, look, it's people always say that to me, and they're like, well, how can there be so many teams in California? Well, California has like 8 million more people than Canada, right? And it's a country that's the size of Japan, the state that's the size of Japan. And I mean, these markets are not particular, other than the L2 LA teams. There's a decent amount of room in between. I mean, I don't understand why that would be an issue. I mean, New York City and New York Red Bulls play, an hour away from Philadelphia Union, but no one talks about how there's too many teams in that area, whereas the Republic are actually farther away from San Jose than those teams. I don't really see it being an issue. I could see there being 5 teams in California for sure, given the amount of people in the state, how large it is, and how big each of those markets are.
Evan, when you're looking at the 12 bids that were presented to MLS headquarters yesterday, which one is a dark horse that you think actually have a chance to squeeze into those 4 spots?
Interesting. Honestly, it's tough for me to say because so much of my focus over the last 24 hours or so has been, okay, what's actually happening in Sacramento, right? And so I haven't really gotten the chance to take a thorough look at any of them. All I know is that regardless of how the markets or what the logistics turn out to be, I know that MLS would very much like to be in Detroit and very much like to be in San Diego. And I've known that for quite some time. So even though neither of those markets are anywhere near as far along as a market like, Sacramento or even St. Louis or Cincinnati, that those are 2 places that MLS is really targeting. But as far as a dark horse bid, I'm not sure I can really answer that with an informed opinion at this moment.
All right, Evan, that's wrap with this one. We appreciate your time as always. How confident are you that MLS will be playing in Sacramento in the year by the year 2022 right now?
Hard to put a percentage point on that, and I don't think. Sorry, this is like such a political answer, and I'm giving you 2 in a row. But so sorry if you could call it the cop out if you want, but I really would like to wait and really see what happens between the two sides to really judge something like that. Like I said this morning on Jason Davis's show, yesterday or 2 days ago, I was basically 99% sure that MLS will be in Sacramento in the near future, and now I really don't know. It's really hard to put a number on it. I wonder if what happened yesterday was something that Don Garber knew about, and if he did, then it probably doesn't affect the bid at all. And maybe even this publicity is a little bit of a good thing. But if he didn't, then I just wonder how that's going to affect the bid, and I would guess that it would be negative. So we'll see. I mean, I would say that I don't think Sacramento necessarily drops out of being one of the favorites of the bid, but they're definitely not the slam dunk that they were 2 days ago.
All right, for what it's worth to Sacramento listeners out there, 6 months before Toronto FC was given the franchise, that bid was dead in the water based on political factors here in Toronto, but they changed quickly. Never know what's going to happen, and as surprising as yesterday was, things can move pretty quickly. Evan, anything you want to promote, and for sure give your Twitter handle out there so listeners can follow your continued reporting on this?
I'm just at Evan Ream. I don't really have anything in particular to promote. But thanks for having me on. If you want to follow my coverage, you can. If not, then that's fine too. But thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Evan. We'll talk soon.
All right. Thank you.
You are listening to SPN Radio, powered by the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit sportspodcastingnetwork.com for more.
next on Soccer Today.
Hey, and welcome back. I don't know, Kevin. Where do you want to go with that? What do you any more to say with Sacramento?
Well, not necessarily Sacramento itself, but other surprising bids. We knew 10 of them that we had a short list type of, but Indianapolis is a market that we're surprisingly potentially have a decent bid that was presented to MLS yesterday, now part of the 12 bids that have been presented for an expansion in the next 2 expansion rounds that Major League Soccer will have in its recent future.
Well, precisely, yeah. Look, I don't necessarily agree with Evan completely about the non-geographical thing. I agree with him that California is more than big enough to host 5 teams. Hell, they could host 10 if they wanted. But I don't necessarily agree that MLS thinks that way, that they may believe in a regional footprint that's not just coastal, right?
And not just that, the perception of it will believe that it's not that you give California a lot, but you don't give the rest of the country enough. So that is something to be worthy as well. That's why the lack of presence in the Midwest is something we have been talking about a lot for Major League Soccer. And I have a feeling at least one of those 4 will be either St. Louis, which is literally the gateway to the West, or a Cincinnati, something in those veins.
He's right, though, that they want Detroit badly. And I understand why they want Detroit badly. It is amongst the major cities in the U.S. There's natural rivals both with Toronto and Chicago.
It's the Audi MLS Cup, right? Now it's going to be Target this year, but it was the Audi. You get to Detroit, Mighty Ford. You get to Detroit. There's a lot of benefit going back to Detroit, even though it's not what it used to be. Detroit, there's part of it. There's still the auto industry is present. You get those advertising dollars by having a team there. It all makes sense now. There's a lot of things possible when you get a team there. Same reason for San Francisco. You get a team in the Bay Area. Silicon Valley is not too far away, and Facebook in the front of a jersey kind of looks sexy,
Yeah, well, you mentioned Detroit. You're right. It's part of the Rust Belt, but there is sort of a resurgence a little bit around Detroit. There is a hipster kind of youth culture that exists in that city. It has got some of that vibe to it nowadays. And as I said, it does fit in nicely with a lot of little drives. You can drive to Chicago, you can drive to Toronto, you can drive to Columbus. There's lots of opportunity there for some road trips and for some natural rivals to sort of spur up the Detroit team. And it's I think obviously where they want to go, but there's so much questions there that it's hard to see. And I do think that in some ways Cincinnati and Sacramento in my mind are almost the same thing, that they're leverage bids, that they can bring them in and know that they'd be successful. And I do think that probably MLS had more awareness of what's going on here that we're aware of. It's more a problem of what the fans there push back on.
Sorry, Duane, I was just going to say, and to continue in that vein, my dark horse, the last question I have asked Evan, it's still San Antonio. Like, with the money behind San Antonio, the way the Spurs are managed, those aspects of it, maybe it's a 13 in Texas, but the way it's run, the way the academy and all that process is there with San Antonio FC now in USL, it could be a great idea for me to maybe San Antonio is one of those 4s. 2, maybe not. When you think about the next 2 rounds, one of those 4s, maybe San Antonio makes sense.
Yeah, no, and the ownership, it's about the ownership stupid is what we said the other day, and I do maintain that. Look, when it comes to Sacramento, to wrap up there, I have long, I joked, I called them the Raging Republic the other day. It's a reference to the Rochester Raging Rhinos, or just the Rhinos now, but obviously in the late 90s, they were the big sort of, they were the small market that was sexy, that everyone assumed that MLS was going to go into because it was type of place where they'd be the top team in the market, that they could generate attention there. Obviously, the league has bypassed a market the size of Rochester now in terms of the footprint that he has. And that's unfortunate because we'd like to see markets get in based on merit, not just on demographics. But nonetheless, and stop screaming at me for a while, people. I'm not getting into that right now. That's just merit in terms of fan base. I do worry about that when it comes to Sacramento, and I have for many years. I've been on the record calling them, Rochester West for a long time now, and this didn't do much to alleviate that feeling that I had about it. In terms of the overall expansion bid, and as I said, we will bring in guests from these cities in the days ahead. We'll evaluate these things a little more thorough. I wouldn't be surprised if they came with 2 Midwest bids out of this first 2. that's where they go. If in fact they're not ready to go into Florida yet, if they're not really ready to go back into California yet, then that's still at the Midwest, because they probably feel that they only need 2 more teams in the Midwest, and then they've kind of done it, and then they can go back to the bigger cities.
True, and there's bids like Nashville that are interesting to me. Maybe not now, but maybe it's a seed planted for the future. Same for Phoenix as well, with the new team in Phoenix, new branding of the Phoenix Rising, starting this year, if I'm not mistaken, in the USL. That'll be interesting. Raleigh, Durham, St. Louis, San Antonio, San Diego, Tampa, St. Petersburg. So a lot of interesting bids, and we'll learn more in the future, and which we'll know more, literally, because some of them will have a team.
All right. Quickly to end the show, anything jump out at you on the midweek games out there? Obviously, Arsenal losing to Watford was a bit of a shock. Chelsea, Liverpool to draw, so they couldn't take advantage of that. City got a big win today.
I don't understand Liverpool. I don't understand Liverpool. They lose, I don't know how many games in a row against small club, and then they tie the league leaders. Come on, Liverpool, don't you know the program?
Leicester with another loss too. They're getting more and more precarious as the days go past. But I watched the City game obviously this afternoon, well, most of it anyway, and it's Jekyll and Hyde, that team. Certainly does seem with Jesus coming in that there's certainly some talent there. 2 assists and a goal today. That's going to be a player that a lot of Gabriel Jesus, a lot of players a lot of fans, I think, are going to enjoy watching if they're neutral or if they're obviously City fans. So that's kind of the excitement that jumps out today.
Even in his debut last week, I talked about this. He was, in his first 3 touches of the ball, almost 2 goals and an assist. Like you're talking about inches of 2 goals and an assist in his first 3 touches. It's a question of time when he will be dominating. Once he gets consistent starts and consistent playing time in this league and gets accustomed a little and gets used to the teammates he has, he could be that game changer that we haven't seen in a Premier League uniform in a while.
All right, one half of Simon Fudge's prediction, but the African Cup of Nations final has come true. Egypt gets past Burkina Faso, won 4-3 on penalties, 1-1 in full time. Today, to advance to the AFCON final 2017, they will play the winner of Cameroon-Ghana, which is tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll maybe talk to Simon next week about that final as well. Kevin, any final thoughts on the day?
No, I'm all good. And until tomorrow, stay tuned to Soccer Today SPN on Twitter at 24th Minute for Duane, at Kev Laramee for myself. I want to thank our guests today, Julian de Guzman. Thank you very much for your openness and your willingness to talk about your career. And Evan Ream, thank you very much for giving a little bit of light on what's happening in Sacramento. And until tomorrow, well, have a great soccer. You were listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us, sportspodcastingnetwork.com.